We've taken the advice of the New South Wales Government and New South Wales Health to limit the capacity to 25% initially.
After steadfastly holding on to a 20,000 capacity for the upcoming third test for weeks, the New South Wales Government finally gave in to pressure and halved that number again to 10,000. But it wasn't all bad news.
There are 0 locally acquired cases in New South Wales today.
But it's not a cause for celebration, with real concern there might be more undetected COVID in New South Wales communities.
As of 8 p.m. last night, we had 22,275 tests in New South Wales. The numbers are far too low.
We need those testing rates to be maintained at very high levels to give us that assurity we're not missing those undetected chains of transmission. We're urging those test numbers to well exceed the 30,000, so that's the challenge I put to you.
But it's a BWS bottle shop in the Western Sydney suburb of Barilaro that has authorities most worried. More than 13 positive cases already linked after an airport van driver unwittingly infected a worker. There are already 2 more confirmed cases from this cluster that will be included in tomorrow's official reporting.
It is critical that anyone who attended the BWS store between the 22nd of December and the 31st of December, even for a very short period of time, gets tested and isolates for 14 days, regardless of the result received.
As mandatory mask wearing began being enforced today, some gobsmacking breaches were uncovered. A wedding with an estimated 700 guests, roughly double the 350 maximum allowed.
We have taken action and we've issued a fine of $5,000 to that operator to deter that sort of practice.
No one wins when someone cheats.
New South Wales has managed the pandemic well, but with testing rates so low, how long will its luck last?
Well, for the latest from the New South Wales Government, we're talking to Acting Premier John Barilaro. Acting Premier, up until today, the New South Wales Government and the Chief Health Officer have been steadfast that 20,000 punters would be safe at the SCG. What changed?
Well, good evening, Lisa. Look, we said from the outset that we'll be working through our health officials with the SCG and Cricket Australia and to find the final outcome. And we've had some spikes in an area of Sydney that bothers us and that worries us. And we've decided today to work with the SCG Trust, and we've recapped that at 25%. And then we'll work over the next few days to see if there's any other movement after that.
So the numbers are now capped at 10,000. That still seems pretty risky to a lot of people. You've got choke points when it comes to entry and exit, people congregating at toilets, places where they're buying food. Why don't you mandate masks for this event just as a one-off?
Look, the SCG have held about 20 events over the past period, over the COVID period. About 150,000 spectators have gone through, including the Big Bash. So there is already precedent that we can do this in a safe way, but we will continue to monitor and make decisions and work with everybody. We're confident we can put on a test. We're confident with what we've got in front of us.
John, on the question of fines, there seems to be a real lack of cohesion around the country. We've got 2 people in Victoria going to be fined $19,000 each for confusion at the airport, and yet you've got a venue there in New South Wales that jammed 700 people into a wedding, and that venue's been fined just $5,000. Surely that's not enough.
No, it's not enough, and I said that today, and we'll revisit that, because if you actually look at that, the cap should have been 350 people. They jammed in 700. Let's say a wedding costs on average a couple of $100 a head, times 350, that's a $70,000 windfall for that venue, and they pay a $5,000 fine. So in my mind, it was a very deliberate decision to push the boundaries and in one way, tell New South Wales to bugger off. So we'll revisit that. But there is no question in my mind that's not an accident. It wasn't a couple extra or a dozen people turning up unannounced. It was a significant breach, a deliberate breach by the venue operator. And I think more needs to be done.
And a breach by the people organising the wedding. I mean, so you're going to increase the fine for the venue. Are you going to fine the people who's issued 700 invitations?
The obligation is with the venue operator, because they have to meet the conditions set by government. And in that case, at that time of the cycle, we were, I think, a cap of 350 people, 4 square metre rule applied, no dancing on the dance floor. Now, they've breached all that. That's the venue operator. In relation to the guests, we don't know. We don't know if the venue operator had indicated that he was meeting the obligation or what the rules were. Again, more to be investigated, but at this stage, that venue operator's had that small fine. But I want to see a heftier fine. And why? We need to send a message that it's unacceptable what has occurred.
John, there were 2 more cases linked to the Barilaro bottle shop today, which started on the 21st of December and wasn't detected for 10 days. Are you worried that there's a whole lot of undetected COVID in Western Sydney right now?
Yeah, that this is the part that concerns us and we believe is still volatile. And, you know, today we were able to announce a 0 day, but we already know after the 8 o'clock cut-off last night and this morning that we've already got 2 cases for the day, and we'll know more tonight when the numbers come in. One of the things I'm not happy with is the number of people getting tested. 22,275 people overnight were tested. That is not enough. We need to get up to 30, 40, 50,000, just like in the peak of the Northern Beaches breakout. You know, over a 10-day period, there was 380,000 people tested in New South Wales. Now I want Western Sydney to do the same.
Acting Premier, you've got a huge job ahead of you. Thanks for your time this evening.
Thank you very much.
From expert opinions to in-depth analysis and reporting, the Project YouTube brings you the biggest stories from Australia and around the globe. Hit the subscribe button now for news delivered straight to your feed.